Hey, AP this is the recording for class today. I'm going to be talking about my Abigail Adams essay that I wrote during the first live-timed writing session a couple of 2 weeks ago now. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the slideshow that I made, and I'm going to walk you through the things that I wrote about in my essay. And I'm really going to focus in on incorporating textual evidence and how I write analysis. And I have to say, first off the bat, because I am a more experienced writer, I don't always do exactly the things that I tell you to do. Okay, the ways I give you of writing, the stems and the formulas I give you for writing are really there to help you find your way and find your voice, but I don't really need those things anymore, right? I did try to, at least in the first, I did use the text evidence stem, and then I sort of go off and do my own thing. But I also think it's important that you see what you can do in writing. And when you get confident enough, you can, you know, do things necessarily that I didn't tell you to do. You can sort of do your own thing, and as long as it works, it's fine. Okay, that's the joy of writing. Okay, so I really want you to understand that all the things I've given you, they are just support for you, and that if you don't need them or they get in your way, then don't use them. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I will be talking specifically to the Abigail Adams essay because that's what I decided to write on. And even if you wrote on Lincoln or Benjamin Banneker, the things that I do still apply. All right, and I'm gonna try to talk about how that works. Okay, because just because this is for the Adams essay doesn't mean you can't apply the things I'm doing to your own essays. So first I just want to remind us of the prompt and the things that we are supposed to do in this essay. And when I looked at your outlines, there was a lot of confusion over what the command question was and the conquer question was. And I do believe that I covered those very clearly in my recording about the essay outline, but I think a lot of people didn't watch that video. So I am going to review that here, okay? So our command question is always what we're supposed to be doing in our essay. That is our command, all right? And we take that directly from the prompt. And for Abigail Adams, that is to analyze the rhetorical strategies Abigail Adams uses to advise her son. Our conquer question is always the thing that we don't know until we read the passage. So it's what do we have to conquer by reading the passage? And this always comes right after the command, and usually the verb uses, okay? Because the command is always analyze the rhetorical strategies the speaker uses, and then there is that infinitive phrase to advise her son or to achieve their purpose or whatever it is. In this instance, the thing we have to conquer, the thing we don't know until we read the passage, is how does she advise her son? Okay? And then my answer to the conquer question is the thing that is part of my thesis. She uses all these rhetorical strategies in order to do this thing. So my answer is Abigail Adams advises her son that this trip is an opportunity for personal growth. And lots of people had various ways of phrasing it, and they're all great and fun. I'm bringing in this slide, which was from the timed writing essay before we wrote the essay, just to give everyone an example of what I was doing, okay, and what my outline looked like. So these were the quotes that I was pretty sure I wanted to use, or at least wanted to focus in on. These are my rhetorical strategies. Now, a lot of you said in your essays, she uses pathos, or Lincoln uses diction, or something like that. and I have told you and told you and told you not to use those things or say those things because they don't really tell us anything. And we really went to this sort of outline in order to force you away from those things, because I want you to look at these quotes that you've picked, and these quotes show us the answer to the conquer question. So how do I get to the answer to the conquer question? How do I get to the fact that this is about, she wants him to focus on personal growth? Okay. And so then I take these quotes and basically I make what I like to call a fancy summary. Okay, what is she doing here? Well, she's chastising him. And then when she talks about Cicero and all that stuff in the middle, what is she doing? Well, she lectures him about the opportunities. I also mentioned that it's a pep talk. I could say she encourages her son to take advantage of the times he lives in, to be like Cicero or something like that. Okay, I could even just say she alludes to the greatness of Cicero in the hopes of encouraging him the desire to be a part of history. Okay, there's like a million different ways to say these things, and none of them are wrong. I mean, obviously they can be wrong. Some are stronger than others, but there's multiple ways of saying these things. And then finally, she reminds him of his duty. Okay, and so we're always in draft mode. And now that I really think about it, and I think more about what my conquer answer really is, that this opportunity will provide him with personal growth, I think now I would probably completely change these quotes, because these quotes don't really fit with experiences for personal growth. Okay, but that's what it is, and we won't worry about it too much. Okay, and then down there, that is my thesis that I put together, and that's on the next slide too. So let's just move on. Okay, so this is my thesis statement. In her letter to her son, Abigail Adams, the wife of John Adams, a U.S. diplomat after the American Revolution, chastises her son for not wanting to travel abroad with his father, lectures him on the opportunities provided by the historic times in which he lives, and reminds him of his duty to honor and obey his parents in order to argue that this opportunity will provide him with experiences for personal and professional growth. And so, if you look back between what I originally wrote on my outline and then what I'm writing here, I did shorten some things, which I encouraged you to do in that live timed writing session. So, and some of you did really try to do that, and I really appreciate that. And some of you didn't at all. Again, because I don't think you were watching the video. But this formula that I've given us does give us a long sentence, but as long as we put it together correctly, it's fine. A lot of you are still creating long comma splice sentences where you're putting together a bunch of complete sentences with commas. Okay, I get a lot of people who are saying, in her letter to her son, Abigail Adams, the wife of John Adams, a U.S. diplomat after the American Revolution, she chastises her son. We don't need double subjects. We have our subject right here. And these are the things that she does. She chastises, she lectures, she reminds. Okay? All right. So that's my thesis statement. And the thesis statement then provides the outline, basically, for all my paragraphs. All right. So this is my first paragraph, and I'm just going to read it first, and then the next slide I'm going to break it down. So, to begin her letter, Adams gently chastises her son for his reluctance to travel with his father in order to argue that the journey will be a learning experience for him. All right, I took my first rhetorical strategy, and I turned that into a topic sentence and connected that with, in order to argue that the journey will be a learning experience for him, which is basically the same thing, that this opportunity will provide him with experiences for personal and professional growth. And so that makes my topic sentence And this helps me to focus in on what I'm talking about because I kind of want to make sure that I'm coming back to these ideas, okay, as best I am able to. All right, and here I am using the textual evidence stem that I'm giving you. Take, for example, how she points out his quote, or excuse me, points out his inability, quote, of judging what was most for his own benefit. Okay, so I have taken a little part of a sentence, okay, and I have meshed that with a sentence of my own that provides a little bit of context, okay? And this is really what she does in the very first paragraph. That whole sentence is, if I had thought your reluctance arose from proper deliberation, or that you were capable of judging what was most for your own benefit, and so on and so forth. I'm just focusing in on this part of judging what was most for his own benefit. A couple of things. You'll notice this right here, where I have the his in straight brackets, because originally it was what was most for your own benefit, because she's talking to her son. But because I am talking about Abigail Adams and her son, about him, I need to change this. And so when I change something like pronouns or the tense of a verb, I have to put it in straight brackets. That alerts the reader that I have made a slight change to the quote so that it makes sense in my writing. Okay? I'd also like you to note that, oh, I just realized that I said I was going to read through this all and then talk about it. And I'm clearly not doing that. So I'll go ahead and move to the next slide. That the period goes within the quote marks, okay? And really, you don't need to worry about telling me line numbers or anything like that, okay? What you do need to do is you need to actually quote the text. I had many of you just tell me, well, in line such and such, and then you didn't quote anything, okay? Don't leave it up to the reader. Don't make the reader go back to the passage and figure out what it is that you're talking about. That's lazy, okay? You need to do all the work for the reader. The reader shouldn't have to do any work aside from reading what you have to say, all right? If you're making me do more work than that, you're not doing your job as a writer. All right, so we have this little quote, all right? And what is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 words, okay? But basically a clause out of a sentence, okay? I didn't quote a whole sentence. I quoted part of it. All right, so I have my textual evidence, and then I need to analyze that, okay? I need to talk a little bit about, like, what is she doing? Why is she doing this? Okay. So Adams immediately exerts her maternal authority over her son, effectively assuring him that she knows best. Regardless of young Adams's wants, he had to go because she said so. All right. So, and I could have said more here, right? But I'm writing within 45 minutes, so I can only say so much. But I'm getting across the idea that she is immediately setting up her credibility because by exerting maternal authority over him. She is her mother, and it is his job to obey what she has to say. But I keep going, all right? And I have added in a little more textual evidence. Interestingly, she writes that he readily submitted to her advice. Okay, you see I am making the changes again so the sentence makes sense and marking that with my straight brackets. Advice, I underlined, that's my underlining, okay, to emphasize that word. And so then I need to go back, now I need to analyze that. Why is that interesting? Okay, so even though she has exerted her authority over him, by using the word advice, she allows her son to maintain a kind of agency here. She makes this about his choice. And I am underlining that word too. That's my underline. Okay. Which will become important throughout the letter because what young Adams makes of his trip abroad is all about his choice. Now, you may or may not notice that to some extent, and I find this a lot when I write, I am wandering away from my initial thesis a little bit because I got into this idea of choice here. And that's because I'm still figuring things out as I write. And that is okay. I just want to make sure that I try to, as much as possible, be consistent and still bring it back to this idea of, a learning experience. Okay? But now I'm bringing in this idea of choice. Okay? So I'm saying what this word does, okay? Because it's advice. It's not a mandate or a demand or an order. It's advice. And therefore, because she uses the word advice, she makes it about his choice. He gets to choose whether or not he takes that advice, right? And she continues this idea throughout the letter, okay? And I am going to talk about that throughout my analysis, okay? And again, I'm saying, what does she do at the end? She emphasizes this notion of choice. So all of this stuff that I've highlighted in pink, I'm telling you what she is doing, okay? And I'm giving you some sense of why she is doing it, okay? All right. So she emphasizes this notion of choice at the end of the second paragraph. She writes that while nature has not been deficient, what her son must supply is attention, diligence, and steady application. Again, I am putting in some textual evidence. And at this point, I don't remember if, okay, yes, this is not initially the quote that I had picked out, but this is what I decided to go with, all right? So never feel like you're locked into anything. You can change as you go, all right? In other words, and so I'm going to paraphrase what she's saying. He's quite smart, but he must make the choice to use that intelligence to grow in character. Okay? And so I think now that I'm looking back at this and knowing that this was a first draft, if I'm going to go back and revise this essay and make a more full essay out of it, I might actually pull out and talk about that metaphor about the river and stuff, because that really more fully gets into that this journey is a learning experience. This journey can change him. And I did sort of that, but I didn't do the best job that I could have, okay? So, and I want you to see too that writing is this process that I'm not perfect at it, you're not perfect at it. Don't worry about it too much. You just have to make the choice to be consistent and to really be thinking about what it is that you're writing as you're writing it. Okay. This is my second paragraph. So, and I'll try to actually read the whole thing first and then I'll talk about it. In order to shake her son into action, Abigail Adams argues that the revolutionary times in which he lives is the prime opportunity in which to develop his character. She first points out that the habits of a vigorous mind are formed in contending with difficulties, like those of Cicero, to whom she alludes. She hopes to excite her son with this allusion to ancient Roman history and the great man who rose to prominence during that time. While it is not quite a carrot on a stick, she does dangle the possibilities open to her son in this time to become, I should write that instead, to become a great man. It may be his lot to be an eyewitness of war, tyranny, and desolation, but that these are the scenes that engage the heart and form the character of the hero and statesman. She connects the troubles and triumphs of the Roman Republic with the troubles and triumphs of his own country that made a glorious defense of its invaded liberties, hoping to kindle in her son the desire to imitate those men and be a worthy patriot, if only the underlying point being he will make a choice and take advantage of it. Okay. And I have to say, because of the general thrust of the middle of the passage, I did do a better job of talking not just about choice, but also this, he's going to develop his character if he chooses to do so. All right, so my topic sentence does relate directly back to my thesis statement. Okay, I took my second, my second rhetorical strategy and meshed it with that in order to argue, in order to advise. Now you will notice that I did not exactly follow the stem that I gave you. Okay, and this is an instance when, as an experienced writer, I don't need that stem. So I can step out and do something slightly different and word it differently. I still have the same content. The form of the sentence is different. All right, so my textual evidence. And in this paragraph especially, I really did sort of dispense with the stem that I gave you. But really, I could have said, take, for example, how she first points out that the habits of a vigorous mind, and so on. I just took that off because I don't need it, okay? It's there to get you started. But if you don't need it, don't use it, okay? She first points out that the habits of a vigorous mind are formed in contending with difficulties, like those of Cicero, to whom she alludes. Okay, so again, I am taking a phrase, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so an 11-word phrase, not a whole sentence, but an 11-word phrase, and putting it into my own sentence. All right. And I have to say, like, I am using some sort of, I'm not using, like, maybe necessarily the strongest verbs here. I'm using, she first points out. What did I use here? I used points out again. Writes. I'm not getting super fancy here, okay? Maybe in my next draft, I would try to jazz up those verbs. But for now, whatever. This works, okay? Remember, I'm not going for perfection here. I'm trying to be consistent in my writing, okay? And to use strong verbs when I can, all right? All right, so I've said this is what she does. So she points out this thing, habits of a vigorous mind. She alludes to Cicero. Now I want to talk about, like, why is she doing that? What's the point of that? Why is she saying these things? Well, she hopes to excite her son with this allusion to ancient Roman history and Cicero, who was a great man. So this does require of you some knowledge, okay, of what she is talking about. All right, and if I was going to revise this, I would make this more specific, an allusion to the ancient Roman Republic. All right, because ancient Roman history is like 500 years long, okay? And this is a particular point in that history. Okay, and then I even sort of liken it, I use my own sort of metaphor. While it's not quite a carrot on a stick, she dangles the possibilities open to her son in this time. And also, this requires of us an understanding too. She alludes to Cicero because her son would have known who Cicero was. He would have already been studying Cicero. Even though he's, 12 years old, that's what he would have been reading, okay, in his education. And so this is where we get into that pep talk. She wants to excite him. This is why she does it, okay? Because she's not just depending on his maternal authority, she's depending on what he wants out of his life. And indeed, that would be a great thing to say in my essay if I had thought about it at that point, okay? But again, this is always just a draft. This is a work in progress. Okay. It may be his lot to be an eyewitness of war, tyranny, and desolation, but these are the scenes that engage the heart and form the character of a hero and statesman. Now, this inclusion of textual evidence. I used a lot of textual evidence, but I used all these little phrases to be my own sentence, because these don't all go in order in the letter. I pulled them out and put them in a different order to make my own sentence. Okay, so, and again, if I'm going to revise this, I might spend a little more time explaining what she's doing, but basically, she connects the trouble, and this is where I used parallelism. Okay, she connects the troubles and triumphs, or I could also say repetition, of the Roman Republic with the troubles and triumphs of his own country. I might actually say of America. That made a glorious defense of its invaded liberties. Again, I'm using textual evidence, but I am weaving that in with my analysis. And this is what the strongest writers do when we're writing rhetorical analysis or even a research paper, is that we mesh our own thoughts along with material from others. Okay, so she makes this connection, all right? And again, she hopes to kindle in her son the desire. This is why she's talking about this. This is why she's saying these things, okay? And again, here I come back to that idea of choice. He has to take advantage of this, right? He has to make the choice. Okay, so those were my first and my second two paragraphs. And I have to say, I think the second paragraph is certainly better than the first paragraph. But then, this is my third paragraph. And I was clearly running out of time. And this one sucks. Okay, so this is, don't worry about it being perfect. Get through what you can get through and turn it in. So finally, Abigail Adams ends her letter reminding her son of his duty to honor and obey his parents. She points out that her son is directly connected to this contest through his father, who took so large and active a share in it. Young Adams must choose to take advantage of the opportunity given to him, if not for himself, then for his father, and to live up to all that his father has accomplished and not embarrass him. This final admonishment or piece of advice again exerts Adams' maternal authority over her son, just as she began. Young Adams must honor his parents above all else. Okay, yeah, this is not a great paragraph, y'all. But this is what I said in my thesis, so this makes my topic sentence here. And I even finally, all right, again, I'm not using the stem that you have for textual evidence, but it just doesn't have the take, for example, how she points out that her son, okay? Because I don't really need those. I am here trying to get in this idea of he must choose, that underline is me, to take advantage of this opportunity. So it's this interesting thing about, yes, she's making it about his choice, but she's ending the letter with the quote unquote advice that he must choose to do this thing, okay? That it is his duty to his parents to do well and to learn from this experience, all right? If nothing else. If he's not going to do it for his own desire to be a great man, well, he should do it because he honors and obeys his parents. Now, like I said at the beginning, I don't know that this really connects very well with the, I need to do a better job of saying how or what this has to do with this is an opportunity for personal and professional growth, or whatever it was I said. I think I would actually probably, if I was going to go back and change this, I would instead pick quotes from the very last paragraph, from paragraph 6, where she pays him basically a compliment that he has always done what's right. And so she knows that he's going to do what's right and that he will make the most of this and add justice, fortitude, and every manly virtue, blah, blah, blah. That's what that would make for a better connection back to my thesis statement. Okay. But again, this is a first draft. I was doing the best I could in 45 minutes. Okay. It's hard to write a good essay in 45 minutes, but we just have to do our best and we have to keep going. Okay. So hello again. All right. So that is my walkthrough through my essay. I hope that this was useful to you in some ways, especially in the textual evidence part, okay? When you are working on revising your body paragraphs, please use what I have done as a model, okay? Because I think it should be relatively simple to revise what you had done and make it into something that is more sensible, really. Because a lot of times when you are putting textual evidence into your essays, you kind of drop it there or you don't make a complete sentence and it just doesn't make sense. Okay? And there's no reason for you to lose because you're writing sentences that don't make sense. Okay? Especially when it comes to textual analysis, okay? You can totally write the way she writes, something, 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 quote. She points out that paraphrase, paraphrase, quote, just like I have done, okay? So use me as a model, please. All right, when you're writing your analysis, tell me why she's doing this. What point is there for her to say these things? Or for Benjamin Banneker to say this thing? Why is he making a connection between Jefferson and the colonies under Britain and slavery? What's the point? Okay? Because most of the time what you're doing is just giving me summary. And you have to explain to me why. All right? And if you can do that, you're going to be okay. All right? I know that you can do this. All right? Even though it's hard, you have the ability to do it. Okay? So give it your best shot. If you have questions, if you want to run something by me while you're working on it, all you gotta do is send me a text, send me an email. Okay, guys? I am right here and I'm here to support you. I know we're not in the classroom and I know it's hard, but I am still here for you. Okay? That is all for today. I know that this was sort of long. That's okay. I'm still within my hour and a half for this week. All right. I sent you the note earlier today, but on Thursday, 13, 14, May the 14th, yes, on May the 14th, there will be a live timed writing session, a cold timed writing session at 10 a.m. I'm going to give you a passage that you've never seen before, and you're going to have to read it and try to write an essay on it in 45 minutes and do the best you can. And this is going to give you some practice for exam day, okay? And that will be kind of the last thing, okay? So that is all for today, and I will talk to you all later. Be well, y'all.